Hello, everybody. Uh, I'm extremely happy to be talking to you about climate change today. Uh, I'm grateful to Professor Natarajan for having invited me to deliver this lecture on climate change on the Engineers Day. Happy Engineers Day. Congratulations to all of you. Now, uh, we know we actually know what weather and climate is. Weather, as we understand, is the day-to-day, temperature, whether it is going to rain or not rain, humidity, whether there's going to be wind or no wind. So that is weather. The day-to-day are what we understand by weather. And climate is also, we understand, we have a definition of climate. It's the long term average of weather conditions. And so, climate, we know climate varies from place to place. Europe has one type of climate, largely cold. India has another type of climate, what we call, in certain areas, most of India has subtropical climate, subtropical conditions, heat. There's a lot of heat, and then we have monsoon. So we know what kind of climate we have. As I said, Europe, America, or East America has a largely cold climate. India has a wet come warm climate. Southeast Asia also has similar kind of climate like ours, and so on. Australia and New Zealand have a different climate. Northern areas, Russia, extremely cold, Siberia, extremely cold. So we know what climate is. But when we talk about climate change, we are, really talking about what is happening at the global level. What is happening at the global level? And for that, we feel that, it is said that the Earth is actually getting heated up over a period of time. The Earth, not I won't say world, the Earth is getting heated up. There's the average rise in temperature of Earth, or of the atmosphere of Earth, is increasing. Uh, they talk about global warming. Now, global warming is something which has been recorded in comparison to what were the average global temperatures in the last century, in the century before last. The last was 20th century, in the later part of the 19th century. And it is said that the temperature, the average global temperature of the last century, measured till 2020 also, has been 1.4 degrees higher than the the average global temperature of the last century, the pre-industrial times, the 1850 to 1900. That is what is being said, that global warming is taking place because the average global temperature recorded last century is has been higher, 1.4 degree, already 1.4 degree higher than the average global temperature of the pre-industrial times, which I am bracketing that as 1850 to 1900. So it means that the earth is heating up. Now, why it is happening, and how it is happening, how it is being seen, what are the implications, what is the impact of this, and how should the world deal with it, that is what this lecture is all about. So the first part of this lecture will be, what is it that makes people feel, or that has awakened the world, alerted the world to global warming and climate change. Climate change as a result of global warming. Global warming, let's understand that. Now, it is said that the global warming is taking place because of the greenhouse effect. And what is greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect is that uh, Earth, the sun is radiating, is sending radiations. It is coming to the Earth's surface. Earth is getting heated up, and Earth emits back the heat, the radiation, and that is absorbed by the greenhouse gases, and they in turn reflect that, send that radiation back to the Earth, thereby heating up the Earth's surface. Now, it is also said by the scientists that if there was no atmosphere, Earth would have been a very cold place. A very, very cold. Earth's surface would have been very cold. Earth would have been a hard, cold place. That is what the expression they use. But because of these greenhouse gases present in the atmosphere, the heat is being reflected back, is being sent back, and therefore the Earth is, getting is always warmer, heater, hot, or not hot, warmer. Now, suppose there was no, that I have said, if there was no atmosphere. Now, if there are more greenhouse gases, that is the point. If there are more greenhouse gases, that means the greenhouse effect will be greater. That means more heat will get trapped. That means more heat will get emitted back by the greenhouse gases to the earth, raising the temperature of the earth higher. And that is how the global warming has been taking place, because we have been releasing, as a result of various human activity, as a what is called the anthropogenic factors, the human activity across the board is producing a lot of emissions because of the burning of the fossil fuels, and that in turn, is producing these greenhouse gases, the concentration of which, the quantities of which are increasing in the atmosphere. So I hope I have been clear to this extent, that how the greenhouse gas effect is warming the earth, because the greenhouse gases are is reflecting back the radiation, are sending the radiation back along with the heat, thereby raising the temperature. They are transparent to the solar radiation. Solar radiation is allowed transparently by the greenhouse gases. But when the radiation goes back, Earth radiates back, they send it back. They send the radiation, much of the radiation back. Now, which are these? What are these greenhouse gases? Greenhouse gases are greenhouse water vapor. The first gas listed, water vapor, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a major greenhouse gas. Methane, CH4, tropospheric ozone, the fluorocarbons, the chlorofluorocarbon, hydrochlorofluorocarbon, hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and sulfur fluoride, hexafluoride. These are all greenhouse gases, and they get produced when fossil fuels are burnt. When fossil fuels are burnt, these greenhouse gases get produced and they go into the atmosphere, and they play the role of they give they they're responsible for the greenhouse effect, which means keeping the heat back, keeping the heat trapped, or sending back the heat which the earth radiates. The radiation originally coming from sun, but the earth radiates it back. These because of these gases there, they radiate it back to the earth, and earth gets warm. That is how the global warming takes place. Now, if the global warming is a phenomenon, how does it show itself? How do people see that because of this there are a lot of changes taking place, and because of which so many that we talk about climate change. One, the global warming is of course the cause, the trigger, which I have explained. Then what is happening is sea level rise. There is a sea. What has been seen, average sea levels have risen. Warming ocean temperature has gone up over the years, over the last, as compared to the last 100 years. Shrinking ice sheets, this has also been seen. Then declining Arctic sea ice, glacial retreat. Glaciers are retreating both in the ocean as well as on the mountains. Increase in extreme events. Now, this is very important. What are the extreme events? Extreme events are the floods, very heavy rainfall, drought conditions, heat waves. You have recently seen the heat wave, and you have also seen a very heavy rainfall in Wayanad, Kerala, where 300 people died as a result of extremely unprecedented, unusual kind of heavy rainfall, which is linked to the climate change, global warming come climate change. Then ocean acidification. So I talked about increase in extreme weather events, or climate events, as you may call them. So these are all indications of a climate change. These are all indications of a climate change as a result of the greenhouse gas effect. Now, human activities are so many. When we talk about which are the activities which produce maximum greenhouse, the energy sector includes electricity production, heat production, transport. Energy sector, it emits about 73.2% of greenhouse gases are emitted when in these activities, in these sectors, energy sector, which includes electricity, heat and transport. Then direct industrial processes contribute about 5.2% of the greenhouse gases. Then agriculture, forestry and land use. Now agriculture also uses lots of energy. Forestry also uses a lot of energy, and therefore burning of fossil fuels. Land use, all these urban development and all that, 18.4%. So across the board, all the human activities, right from industry to agriculture to transport to electricity production to heat processes, all this forestry, all these produces, because fossil fuels are used, they're used for energy, heating purposes, and as a result of which the gases are produced, the greenhouse gases are produced, which I listed. I said what the greenhouse gases are, and as a result of which the global warming is taking place. So I have now, till now, I have covered, I have said what is the greenhouse effect and what are which are these greenhouse gases, how does, which are the areas of human activity, which are the sectors which are producing maximum amount of greenhouse gases. Now we come to how did the world get aware of it? Towards the end of the last century or middle of the last century, scientists started looking into this data of global warming, and they felt that the Earth was really heating up because of the fossil fuel burning and because of the emission of the greenhouse gases. And then the UN got into the picture. After all, this is a world problem. This is not a problem of one country. Atmospheres don't belong to, you don't have boundaries in atmosphere. You don't have an American atmosphere and European atmosphere or a British atmosphere or an Indian atmosphere or a Chinese atmosphere. Is the world atmosphere. So there is, you have whatever you do, if you have to do something, so intervene within the atmosphere, reduce these gases, greenhouse gases, what do? You have to come together for a global effort. Now, in this, I would request you to take note of three things, three terminologies. One is the COP meetings, Conference of Parties, where heads of states have come together frequently. You must have heard recently COP meeting at, the recent was in Dubai, the COP 28, and the next is going to be in Azerbaijan. Before Dubai, there was Sharm el Sheikh. Before that, there was Glasgow, where the PM, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, also attended. And before that, you heard of, all of you may have heard, some of you may have heard, or all of you may have heard of the Paris Agreement, the Paris Conference of 2015, and the Paris Agreement of 2016. Now, here the heads of countries meet to decide what needs to be done by all countries together to do something about reducing the global warming, reducing the emissions. And so COP is Conference of Parties. Second is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Third is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, UNFCCC and IPCC. So when you come across these terms, don't get surprised. Know that these are the bodies within the United Nations, the IPCC, the UNFCCC, which are responsible, which are monitoring the global effort for reducing global warming, for reducing these, this greenhouse gases. And so when we, in Paris Agreement, in Paris, conference took place in 2015, where 196 countries signed the Paris Agreement. They actually signed it, it took time in 2016. And they agreed on, for example, they reducing emissions. I'll tell you what the Paris Agreement was. The limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees during this century. Increase of 1.5 degrees over the pre-industrial time. That is what I said about to restrict it. to one point. We have already reached 1.5 or 1.4, and they say that we have crossed 1.5. But that was the Paris Agreement, and if it continues like this, a lot of people are saying that we might actually land up having an increased global average global temperature by the end of this century of 4 degrees centigrade more, or even 6 degrees. So you can imagine, what kind of heat, what kind of uh, extremely inconvenient, I mean, sweltering heat, burning heat will be there if we have average global temperatures of 4 point or 5 degree more than the average global temperatures of the 19th century pre-industrial times. So they said we'll plan only for, we'll do what, we'll take all measures to ensure that it does not exceed 1.5 degree. Then they talked about, money, the climate action fund for the poor countries to take up mitigation and adaptation measures, because they don't have money and they will continue to burn fossil fuels. But the rich countries, who are primarily responsible till now for global warming because they've been using lots of fossil fuels, they must take the responsibility of now rescuing the world, rescuing the globe, the earth from global warming by helping the poor countries to take up mitigation and adaptation measures. That I'll come to later. What is the difference between mitigation and adaptation? Then they said, we will also create the carbon sink, which means raise plantations and all that, and then uh, and go to the move from, main thing was moving from the fossil fuels to the renewable energy. That was the main, decision, that we will slowly, not I mean gradually, but steadily reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, on emissions, and go to renewable energy. Because if you go to renewable energy, there is no such thing like greenhouse gas effect, greenhouse gas production. Even if there is, it is very marginal. It is very marginal. So this was the Paris Agreement. The key points I have already said, and so after that there have been, conferences in Glasgow, COP26. There was COP27 Cairo, Sharm el Sheikh, 28 Dubai, and 29 is going to be Azerbaijan. In between, American attitude had been very negative during Donald Trump's presidency. He wanted to get out of COP. He said this is all humbug. We don't believe in this COP and all that. Although their ex-vice president, who was a vice president to Clinton, Mr. Al Gore, has had the maximum contribution in ensuring global effort in ensuring COP meetings for to reduce global warming and to kind of fight climate change. So we then come to what is called the climate action finance. Climate action. I told you, even in this Paris Agreement, they talked about climate action fund for the poor countries, which the rich countries were to make available about $100 billion to the poor countries so that they can take up these mitigation and adaptation measures. But that is also not coming through as much as was expected. And in Glasgow, they also decided on net zero, when to achieve net zero. Now, most of the countries, Americans were keen that net zero should be achieved by 2050, but China and India have, I know about India definitely, but I'm not so sure about China. India has said that we'll achieve net zero by 2070. Now, what does net zero mean? The net zero means that whatever we are emitting by way of greenhouse gases, we are going to have enough, carbon sinks, enough sinks to absorb, to reabsorb the greenhouse gases. For example, the trees, the forest cover. If we, have a very large forest cover, we'll be able to absorb the kind of emissions that the greenhouse gases that we are sending. But most importantly, we have to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. Only then, whatever to the level that we reduce it. If we are now emitting only one fourth of what we are doing right now, say in 2050, then it will be easier for us to absorb back that one fourth through carbon sinks, or even through new technologies. New technologies are being tried to reduce, to the greenhouse gases, to break the greenhouse gases right in the atmosphere or in some other ways. So technology is also being used. Let us hope that in future we are able to reduce the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, and we are also able to create technology, processes, and find ways and means to reabsorb the greenhouse gases that the human activities, the anthropogenic factors, and anthropogenic factors might result in, which means all these industrial processes, all our human activity, agriculture, industry, electricity production, whatever you have, whatever greenhouse gases are produced and transport are sent into the atmosphere, we should be able to reabsorb. That is what net zero is. Net zero is not producing zero greenhouse gases. That is not net zero. Net zero is producing as much but absorbing a similar quantity. Then you have the mitigation and adaptation measures. Mitigation, every country is supposed to take mitigation measure which will reduce the greenhouse gas emission by shifting largely to renewable energy, to the to non-fossil fuels or non-fossil fuels. It's not only renewable energy, the non-fossil fuels. Then adaptation. Adaptation is that if we will still have some global warming, we will still have some climate change, we will still have some impact of global warming, floods, drought, lack of water, or sea level rising, some of these coastal towns getting submerged. So many effects are there. Wind storms, massive, these heat waves and all. How do you cope up with that? How do you cope up with these effects of climate change, be it a heat wave or heavy rainfall or floods and all that, or windstorms? So adaptation measures are as much necessary as the mitigation measures. And then, India also has a national climate action plan, and so have all the states. So the climate action plan that we have is, it has, these are the components of that. These are the components of that. I'll tell you what are the components of the national action plan. You must know what our country is doing for the national, for the to reduce global warming. We have a national solar mission. We have national mission on sustainable habitat. That means our buildings have to be such, they have not to be energy intensive. National mission for sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem. National mission of enhanced energy efficiency. National water mission. National mission on strategic knowledge for climate change. National mission for a green India. National mission for sustainable agriculture. So everything, all these activities have been taken care of, so that we have much less emission into the atmosphere. And some of the India also has a what is called the nationally determined contribution, which has been informed to the UNFCCC, that what is it that apart from these missions, what in quantitative terms we are going to do. What we said is that we are going to shift our energy from 50% of our energy requirements by 2030 will be met by renewable energy, non-fossil fuels. Similarly, we will have about 2.5 billion to 3 billion tons of carbon sink, which means plants and trees and forests, rejuvenation of forests, reforestation. Then we said that we will achieve net zero by 2070. That is, and not by 2050. Then we have also talked about lifestyle for environment. We have talked about lifestyle for environment, which means that our PM said in Glasgow that Indians are known for simple lifestyles. So if we have simple lifestyles, it is we at individual levels also will be making contribution to in reduction of emission of these greenhouse gases, and thereby reducing global warming. And those are also, there are under 12 categories, the PM lifestyle for environment, the life initiative which we talk about, the energy efficiency is one first category. There are 7 actions under energy efficiency. For example, switch to LED bulbs, turn off lights, electronic when not in use, so on. Water conservation, waste reduction, sustainable transportation, use of bicycles, for example, sustainable food, use of millets, and reduce wastage, sustainable fashion, green spaces, pollution reduction, climate action, biodiversity conservation, uh, education and awareness, community engagement. These are 12 categories. Under 12 categories, there are 75 actions. all to be taken care of, all to be taken but at the individual and community level, so that we have a lifestyle which is environment friendly, lifestyle for environment. And this is what we thought, you should know about climate change. And that is that the global effort is going on. Global effort is going on. COP meetings are taking place. Every country has a target to reduce emissions from fossil fuel, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel. Then every country is also taking mitigation and adaptation measures. Mitigation is to reduce fossil fuel emissions, fossil fuel emissions. Then adaptation is that in case of problems, how do we adjust better? How do we save ourselves? How do we protect ourselves? How do we save ourselves from the effects of climate change, which could be even disease, epidemics, which could be, much of your agriculture may become unsustainable because of lack of water. You may not be able to do the same agriculture because there will be much less water. Or, as I said, you might have to shift whole populations from towns. It is said that Bombay, for example, Mumbai faces the threat of submergence because of the rising sea levels. Not only Mumbai, so many coastal towns, and not only in India, all over the world. How do you relocate this population in case of runaway global warming and runaway climate change? So these are the things which I thought, I think time is limited. Time is limited, but going through it again, we will say that global warming is a real thing. It must be arrested. It must be reduced, so that it must be reduced to the levels that the world has agreed. The COP meetings have agreed. There must be a shift from fossil fuels to non-fossil fuels in terms of energy usage. Largely, the aim is to get to use a lot of renewable energy, a lot of solar energy, and then you must take more mitigation measures and also adaptation measures, and report to the United Nations every now and then as to what you are doing, and continue this effort. Help poor countries through the Climate Action Fund, because they are not able to take all the mitigation and adaptation measures. It is the responsibility of the rich countries who have been responsible through the 20th century and parts of 19th century, because of the industrial revolution came there. They have used a whole lot of energy. They have used so much of fossil fuel that it is the global warming and all these problems are largely because of their creation. That is what the whole world is saying, and that is what has been conceded even by those countries themselves. But the Climate Action Fund is slow to come. But we believe that the world will ultimately find its reason, will do the right thing, and will make a joint effort to protect this planet. Thank you very much.